my channel. Thank you so much for joining Life's Many Journeys. Uh, Today I'm talking about hair, right? As you all know, if you've ever looked at any of my previous videos, I've been on a gray hair journey. Um, I started going gray at a young age, the age of 16, and spent from my 20s on coloring, doing everything I possibly could to cover those grays. So, anyways, been on my gray hair journey, and the question is, how do I really feel about it? Do I feel like going back to coloring? I stopped coloring in 2018. How do I feel about that? Do I really feel about it right now? No, I'm not going back to color. Thought I'd just let that one out right off the bat. But I do want to talk about, how I really do feel about, I've now been on this journey for a little more than 2 years because I started at the end of, actually it's going to be 3 years soon. I started at the end of 2018, so the very end, like in November. So it's going to be 3 years since I've been on this journey. So I thought I need to come on and just, give some insight as to how the journey has been for me and what I feel. For me, it's how people perceive you as gray. And I think that whole mentality that mostly women, because I think men maybe go through it to a certain degree as well too, but it's mostly women go through this. Gray means you're old. People are going to look at me different. People are going to treat me different. I'm not going to be young and hip. I'm not, whatever, fits into your feeling of, it's all perception. And it's perception that sort of has been built up, I'd say forever. I mean, it's just been that way, right? And there's this stigma I find that is around the whole gray, the whole gray image, right? So definitely, I do feel that for the most part, men sort of get looked at differently when they go gray. They have that, people view them as distinguished and even sexy in some terms, right? Women don't really get too much of that, I find, and that is all a part of that whole stigma. You're gray, you're old, right? I and I'm fine. I have found that people view it as a negative thing. Going back even before my transition to gray, I found my first gray hair when I was 16 years old. And it probably had been there longer. I just happened to see it when I was 16. But I didn't really color my hair a lot, or I didn't make the decision to color because of gray. When I was younger, like when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I, did the honey blondes and stuff like that. Like I wanted those dramatic colors, so I did that just for that effect. I mean, and those were the days of like, everything was dramatic back then, so it really was for a dramatic effect. When I got into sort of like my mid 20s, like I stopped coloring altogether when I was like 24. And I noticed that age that my grays had started coming in. And back then, of course, my hair was a bit longer. So a bit longer. So it was like these streaks of grays that just sort of went through my hair. It almost looked like I did it on purpose. So I liked it. I wore it like that through my mid 20s. I met my daughter's father when I was about 28, divorced from my son's father, met my daughter's father when I was about 28. Now, he didn't really like it that much. So, and you know what? I've really done a lot of, thinking about, you go through and you sort of assess things now that I've been going through this stage. And I'm recalling, him back in those days. And I'm thinking, here was a man, because he's 15 years older than me, my daughter's father. And here was a man who was now, he was with a younger woman. So I'm 28 years old, he's 43. So I'm thinking the logic for him was that, I'm with a 28-year-old, I want to be with a 28-year-old. So if I'm going through all this trouble to be with a 28-year-old, I don't want a 28-year-old with gray. So I'm kind of, that's me. That's me making that logic. But, he sort of had negative things to say. It was nothing that the negativity was never, I feel like I'm a little off center here. The negativity was never anything very, very dramatic. Like, no, I don't like those grays. Like, oh, I can't stand to look at you. It was never anything like that. But you know how men are sometimes. They make subtle statements, and then you sort of read into those statements, and so away I went with the coloring. And from the age of 28, where I just had those nice silver streaks through my hair, until the age of 48, 47, going on 48, I was coloring. Color, color, color. And it was like, even after me and him separated, I just lived in color now, because now when my grays grew in, I saw how many I had just based on the new growth, and I just didn't want to be there. So it was like color, color, color. So he by no means was the reason why I continued. But I probably started off with the coloring a bit early because of those subtle nudges, right? Those little statements that were made that, they weren't direct, but you knew sort of what the person was saying. And I think, again, it was just based on people's, and I mean, at the time, I could have said, no, I mean, I love my hair, because I did. I loved it. People complimented me so much because people thought I did it on purpose, right? Just streaks of gray, and my hair was, it was the complete length of my hair, so you didn't see any, like, two-tone or anything like that, so it was, like, silver streaks. So, people loved it, so I got a lot of compliments on it, but I sort of allowed, I guess, how someone else felt to make that decision for me, right? Eventually, maybe I would have gotten to that decision to color as well. I don't want to put it all on him, because I think in the end, we all make our own choices, our own decisions, and maybe at the time, maybe I wasn't confident enough in myself to continue with the grace. I'm going to look at it that way. But it just goes into, and it's so funny because years later now, me and him, we haven't been together in years. My daughter's 18 years old now. We've been together in years. But when I started this journey, this process, it's funny how she said to me when she was out with him, and he said to her, your mom thinks I don't like her grays, but I never said I didn't like her grays. And it was just so random and so out of the blue. She came home and told me this, and I was like, okay, yeah, he never said it outright, but he made enough statements towards, like, why do you have those grays? Do you really like those grays? Statements like that, tells me that you don't like them, right? And you'd prefer not to look at them. So, but I don't know how he just randomly went into this conversation with her about my grays. I don't know. didn't make sense to me. I asked her, I said, were you on the topic of my hair? She said, no, he just randomly told me that I thought he didn't like my grays, but he did. He had no problem with my grays. He never said he didn't like my grays. But anyways, um, maybe as he's getting older, he's evolving as well too. But mind you, he'll never color his. He is now 65 years old. He will never. No, I'm sorry. He will never wear his grays. He will forever color those out. He's not letting those suckers show. Anyways, but that's how people's perception of gray and how people sort of stigmatize gray will sort of influence and you sort of move with the flow of that, when really it's better just to be open about it. If it is something that you want to do, be open about it. Be out there and say, yeah, I'm gray. This is me. This is how it is. This is my hair. I'm proud. I have got nothing to hide. I don't feel it's a negative thing. I love my hair. And you just walk proudly in that reality, right? So one of the things is how people perceive you. Online insults. I actually had an online insult. Like somebody used my gray to insult me. Like I don't even understand how, and I'm still even baffled to this moment. It was actually on Facebook, and um, there was no conversation about hair. It was a woman had posted a story about a man asking her about her, whether she was married or not, and she thought he insulted her by asking her that, and everybody in the comments were like, "Are you crazy?" Of course, that's a valid question for somebody to ask if they're interested in dating you. They want to know, are you married? It's there's nothing wrong with that. So my avatar on Facebook is, of course, gray hair. I'm not hiding anything. My picture is posted with my gray hair, but I have an avatar. It's gray hair. So all I did was post my avatar under the comments, like with the head scratch, like what the hell's the problem here? So it was a head scratch. So she responded. She responded by saying that I should go and figure out why my hair is gray before I try to figure her out. And I'm thinking to myself. So I just responded to her and I said, very mature. Because, like, seriously? You're going to try to use my gray as an insult towards me? But it just goes to show you, that the how people perceive it, how people, they just think like what are you doing? Why are you wearing your gray hair? Like there is color, right? You can color that out, right? Like it's a bad thing, So you come across that. Then there's the whole dating. I'm in the dating world, right? And dating while you're gray, job hunting. I have, since doing my knee surgery and getting back on track, I've been back out there, looking for work, and, the perceptions of the gray. It's like all of these things, and you can tell when somebody is like like they're just completely like in awe, and they're like, oh wow, that's gorgeous, that's beautiful, and they're genuine about it. And you can tell when other people they want to make a comment about it, but then they sort of talk around it. Maybe they're a little curious as to how old you are, so they ask other questions and they make comments around that, trying to, because they're scratching their head a little bit and they're like, okay, like how old is she? Because on a person of my age, maybe they would expect to see like maybe some streaks of gray here or there, and I probably wouldn't be in my age with the streaks of gray. Maybe you'd color it out, maybe you wouldn't. But what happens instead is they're seeing this person full blown gray, and it's like, how old is she? You know, and they kind of want to ask. They're curious. So, you know, these are the things. So it's for me. I still wouldn't change it. I'm not gonna go back to color because I mean, after getting over the initial, you know, every time you look in that mirror and you just see that person staring back at you, after you get over that, you know, it's getting used to that change, right? Because you've colored for so many years and you're used to seeing one thing in the mirror, and then all of a sudden, now you've got a completely different person looking back at you. But, you know, once you get past that, and I got to the point where I would look in the mirror and I would see, especially when I first went to the hairdresser, and, you know, my silver was like really pops when I come from the hairdresser. And I would look in the mirror and I would be like, whoa. That was the kind of reaction I started to get, right? So, my suggestion to everyone is do your thing. If it makes you happy, do what makes you happy. There is no joy in being stuck in that coloring and coloring and coloring if, you know, if that's not bringing you joy anymore. Do your thing. There's always going to be people who choose to look down on you for one reason or another. Um, your life is yours. The journey you're walking is yours. And we all have many journeys in this life to walk. And we have to make the decisions that are best for us, you know, because it's not an easy journey, no matter what journey you're talking about through this life process. They're not easy. So I'm going to, you know what, I haven't showed you guys my hair in a while. I'm going to just take this thing off. This is what it looks like. And it's dry. I'm going to talk about that in another video, the dryness that we have to encounter with gray hair. But as you can see, yeah, it's still gray. There's some black sprinkled in there. I went to the hairdresser the other day. Well, my daughter was doing her hair. I wasn't doing mine. I'm gonna get mine done next week. And I had on a bonnet, and she said, "You know, let me see your hair." And I showed her. And the other hairdresser was in there. I put the bonnet on before she could see, and she's like, "Do you still have that salt and pepper hair?" And I go, "It's more salt, more than pepper right now," and that is the truth. There is more salt. The pepper is very, very limited. So yeah, this is where we are, and I would trade it for anything. I mean, despite what I call the gray hair stigma, right? Despite all that, I wouldn't trade it. I'm loving it. I'm loving the freedom of it, to be able to just get up and go and to not be a slave to, oh my gosh, the grays are growing and let's try and cover those up. No more. No more, no more, no more. And for me, it's a journey that I wish I had started on sooner, because I put myself through a lot of you know, worry and the feelings of oh my gosh, I'm not attractive. These grays are showing. You go to the hairdresser 2 weeks later, there they are again. And you start buying stuff just to cover up the roots, and because you feel like you're not at your best unless you've got them all fully covered. Well, they're all out now, and I'm loving it. I have no regrets on this decision. Right, there we go. That's it. I had to chop off a bit of it because of the pandemic and lockdown. No hairdresser. My hair really suffered. It was not getting, as I gotta admit, I'm not the greatest in hair treatments and stuff. Like, I do a bit, but I'm not great on that. So I did have to chop off quite a bit of it, and it's still trying to recover even now. But this is it. Thank you so much for joining. Like, share, and subscribe if you know anyone that is venturing down their gray hair journey. I do have more videos on my channel earlier on in the process of my transition. They're welcome to go back, or yourself to go back and watch those and just see where I've started my journey to where I am now. And that's it for now. I'm going to be sharing a video about the pros and cons of this gray hair process, just to give you a more specific breakdown of pros and cons that I feel apply to this whole journey, and the whole, not even the journey itself, well, partly the journey and partly living as gray. So I'll be posting that video. I'll also have an update video on some of the gray hairstyles that I've had in the past year and a half. I did a similar video, I think it was probably about a year and a half ago. So just some of the styles that I've had in and how I've worn my gray hair. Mixed in that will be an update on my my hair pieces, because I did a video on all the blunders that I did with choosing gray hair pieces, because I thought when the package said gray, it was gray, and gray just meant gray, and it wouldn't match. So I have an update on that one, and during that video I'll be showing some of the different hairstyles that I've worn through. So thank you for joining. Like, share, subscribe, and let's walk this journey together. Bye.